NERDSoul.
Why are you a black man in love?
Passion for the shit you done.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Black Together, a walk in her shoes. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Lady Lisa, and I am joined by Madam Butterfly. Say hello.
Peace, love, and light, everybody.
All right, we are continuing our series, Black Girl Magic, Smoke and Mirrors versus the Truth. We are in part 4. If you want to check out parts 1 through 3, we will have the links below. But this is part 4, and we are calling it Who Run the World? We are talking about higher education, higher wages that Black women tend to earn, and the impact on marriages and cohabitation as a result of that. So before we go any further, though, I do want to thank NERDSoul, as always, for allowing us to be on this platform. Please check him out on thatnerdsoul.com, on YouTube at thatnerdsoul.com. He has videos on comics, movie reviews, hip hop, a variety of things. So please check him out. Now, what is in our shoebox for this topic, Madam Butterfly?
We have a stuffed patent leather heel with the bottoms painted red, because today we are talking about Black women's pursuit of higher education and how their perception of higher earnings impacts their relationships.
All right. One day we're going to have a whole put together shoe. We're going to get our lives together and have a proper shoeage. Ding. All right. So to begin with, let's go ahead and start with some statistics, since we are talking about higher education, higher wages, and that it's been said that Black women tend to have higher education than Black men. We are more prone to have a bachelor's degree, master's degree, or what have you, and in turn earn higher wages. So let's just talk about some statistics that I was able to find from the National Center for Education Statistics for 2017 to 2018. Among the number of Black people who earned a bachelor's degree, 64% were female. So that was an interesting statistic. And that was the latest stats that I can find. For those of you that may be wondering, I couldn't find any later than 2018. According to the Department of Labor, as of 2018, Black men's median income is $42,076. Black women's median income is $36,735. So as you can see, that is still lower than Black men. I was not able to find stats with the added information comparing income in terms of a Black man with a bachelor's versus a Black woman with a bachelor's. I was not able to find that information, but that's something to also consider. So we're just going to kind of start with what we have and have a conversation about this. So let's start with the question of, why is there such a disparity between the education of Black men and women? Because we do have that stat that 64% of Black people who earned a bachelor's degree were female. Why do you think, Madam Butterfly, that there's such a disparity between the two?
Well, my first thought is in regards to arrests and incarceration. Not from the perspective necessarily of, the narrative that, Black men are in jail or whatever, not from that perspective, but there are certain charges that prevent a person from being eligible for financial aid. And so those types of things, when you're talking about financing your education, that's a huge feat. And so if you have certain charges on your record, you are not eligible to receive any financial aid. So I think that is a huge reason, just straight out of the gate, how
It's huge. That is huge. I
yeah.
never thought of that, and I've never heard that discussed.
Mm-hmm.
That is important.
Yeah, certainly. And then also, I think on the flip side of that, especially when you're talking about women who already have children in the household, it is financially beneficial to go to school, because if you fall in a certain income bracket, then you get financial kickbacks that are helpful. And I know that it was very beneficial to me. And there were times where I was struggling to finish school, but I knew that I needed that kickback for tuition, from tuition, in order to help get me through. And so that helped to motivate me in the difficult times to continue to move forward. So it was kind of like the same thing that keep Black men from getting higher education are the same things that encourage Black women to get education, a higher education.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts were kind of like, we seem to be in a time more so where Black women, I think women in general, but Black women are waiting later and later, to start a family and have kids. And so in that time, they're doing so because we're more and more focused on career and education. I think that's something that's just really prominent now, more so than ever. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Whereas, men, I think, just get to a point where it's like, I just have to focus on, making it. And I think it's also because there is more opportunity for Black women. It's less focus on go ahead and start a family and get married. It's more focused on, uh, getting your education and having a career. Also, I think a lot of it has to do with women who are the head of the household, and it's like, they're like, I'm head of household and I want to do something more. I don't want to just have a job where there's nowhere to go. I kind of hit a ceiling. I want to, get an education and, so I can get a job where I can make more money and provide more for my kids and set an example for my kids in terms of getting that degree. So I think that all has a lot to do with it. And honestly, other than pretty much what you just said, because honestly, that blew my mind about the financial aid. I hadn't even thought about that. I really don't know or really understand why there is such a disparity between men and women. I can understand why there would be, for the reasons I said, more and more women, Black women pursuing their career. But in terms of that disparity, I don't know. I think maybe possibly some of it has to do with how Black boys are treated in schools, how they are labeled, how they are unfairly punished, unfairly kind of pushed to the side as not being smart enough, when in reality they just need to be approached differently.
Right.
So I think all of those things play into that.
Yeah. And being placed into special education.
Right.
Because a lot of our Black boys are treated that way and are
Yeah.
medicated for conditions like ADHD.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Also, I think that, and of course, this is a general statement, and we've talked about this on a previous episode about how there's pressure sometimes for Black boys once they turn 18 that they have to get out of the house.
Yeah.
They have to now start figuring out how to survive.
Yeah.
And girls are kind of given more of a grace period to figure out what it is that they're doing. And
Yeah.
so it makes it a lot more difficult being 18, being newly out into the world, having to take care of yourself and work. You're not in most cases going to find a whole lot of jobs with just a high school education that's going to, support a incredible living. You know what I mean? And so a lot of hours, and then trying to figure out how to work school into that, is a difficult thing. So I think that it's like you said, like that survival thing. If you're trying to figure out how to eat, it makes it difficult to focus on how to build your future. And until you can get that under control, then it's, it opens up other avenues for you to start thinking about building a legacy. But if you're not stable, it's hard to take that into consideration.
Yeah, it's a lot of different things with that. So we're going to do something a little bit different here, because in some of these discussions, I honestly think it's only fair and to be, what's the word I'm looking for? To have a complete conversation and a fair conversation about these things. I want to include some male feedback. So I'm actually going to pose this question, some of these questions to NERDSoul to see what his opinions are on this. So NERDSoul, we're going to throw this over to you. Why do you think there is such a disparity between the education of Black men and women?
When it comes to the disparity, sometimes I wonder, like, oh well, is it really as bad as we think? And then you start to look at the numbers, and you're like, man, it's crazy. And sometimes you just have to wonder, like, all right, well, is this something that's systemic? And I mean, in many cases, you watch documentaries or you read articles, and it does seem, or it seems to hold part of a systemic tie to it, where there's this idea of, well, if we kind of nurture and kind of like feed and push Black women into academia while working extremely hard to discipline Black men out of academia, then there will be a disparity sooner or later. You have the school to prison pipeline and things of that nature. And then you also have a huge different look about or I guess a different conversation going on when it comes to Black men in higher education. And many times we still kind of hold these words true with, oh, there's more Black men and, of course, in jail than in college. And then you have this kind of weird feeling where it's not as celebrated. So you have, for what I would say, yes, there's a disparity, and I'd say it's because we have a systemic issue going on where Black women are kind of like pushed towards it, while Black men are sort of, I guess you could say, disciplined out of it, whether it's like expulsion or, detention or whatever it might be. And then also on the other side, there's this energy around continually feeding this idea to Black men that, oh, well, you're not going to be in college anyway. You'll most likely be in jail. And then you add that with this idea of, it's not cool to be smart when you're a young Black man, like early on. So you do have these kind of like things working against both Black men and Black women, but in this case, more to the negative of Black men to kind of like keep them away. So I do see that, but then you also have like systemic issues that I think go on that create a disparity. But at the heart of it, I'd say the biggest issue is probably that school to prison pipeline that just keeps, it's a, of course, machine that just keeps on moving.
So now, does it make a difference to men if their wife or significant other is more educated than they? Does it make a difference to women if they are more educated than their man? And does it make a difference to men if their wife or significant other makes more money than they?
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole lot.
It's a whole lot.
Whole lot. Let's start with educated. Do you think it makes a difference to men, to Black men, if their woman has a higher education than they do?
No. Generally speaking, I would say no. I don't think as much stock is placed in the pursuit of higher education, generally speaking, for Black men as it is for Black women. I think that Black women look at higher education as a status symbol. They look at it as a way to be competitive with their white counterparts. I think that they connect it to their value and self-worth at times. And that's not something that I think Black men value in that same way. Not to say that they don't want, that they're not interested in higher education. I just don't think that would necessarily trigger a competitive nature in them where it would create a problem in the relationship.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I totally agree with you on that. And it's funny how that works too, because I think sometimes when we as Black women talk about the education that we have, we put it out there, depending on who we're talking to, as a way of saying, this is what I've done.
Right.
And then when we ask a Black man about his education, he's like, oh yeah, I went to such and such. And he just kind of moves on, like that's what I did, no big deal. It's just something that I did. And it's interesting how that works. And I'm not sure why that is. I really don't know why that is, but I agree with that. Do you think it makes a difference to women if you're with a man and you have higher education than he does? Do you think we look at him differently?
Yes, that's the short answer. And this, let me just make sure that I'm clear in saying that I don't personally feel this way. But I think generally speaking, for Black women, whenever you're talking about education, career, ties to corporate America, anything like that, there's a certain air. There's a certain sense of entitlement that comes with that. And so the likelihood of her talking down to her partner if he has not received the same level of education increases, generally speaking. That's what I have seen and what I've known to be true.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to agree with that one too. Yeah, that's all I can do is say I agree. Just move on. There's nothing more to add to that.
Oh my goodness.
Now, when it comes to money though, when it comes to income, do you think that it makes a difference to a Black man if his woman has more money coming in than he does?
I think so. I think that taps more into the whole provide and protect thing. He might not be vocal about it. You know what I mean? And some people may, he may not be vocal about it. It may be something that motivates him to push harder, to strive for, to be able to make more because of what society says about manhood and head of the household and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that it would bother them. I just don't. That may not necessarily mean that it'll show up in the way that it shows up with Black women. I feel like with Black women, there's something that registers as better than. And so now I'm in a position to talk down to, demean, diminish because I'm up here and you aren't. I don't think men process it in the same way. I think that they look at it more as, okay, as the leader of this family, now I have to strive harder to make more money, to provide as much as I can.
Yeah. I honestly think for this one, I think age has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really, really depends on, what age range, a man is in that will tell us how he will respond to this. I think the older a man is, the more it will bother him for, traditional reasons. Like you said, the whole, provide and protect thing. I remember I had a conversation with this gentleman one time, and I don't know how the conversation started, but it got to the point where he was saying, he can't have a woman that makes more money than he does. And I was just like, what do you mean? He's just like, that just can't happen, And so I'm asking him, well, what if you all get together and she makes less than you do, but as time goes on, she gets a promotion and starts to make more? He's like, well, I'm going to have to figure out how to make more money. But it's just, it's like, okay, if that pushes you to do so, great. But the way he was saying it was like, it literally not work.
Right.
It was just, if she made more money. And it was almost like he was stressed about it. And I'm like, you're just on another planet, because my thing was, it's not a competition. You're supposed to be a team, a couple. He does better, y'all do better. It was just, but he was an older gentleman.
For some reason, I don't know why, but when you were telling me this story, I'm like, this man had on gaiters and a powder blue or Easter color. I don't know why that just came into my mind.
He had on a hat that matched his outfit. I don't remember all of that, but it was in a facility where you did see such shenanigans. Oh, another show. Yeah. I guess it's powder blues are the cleaners. I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, I think it is dependent upon age. I think younger men won't be so bothered by it or adamant about it than older men. Again, simply because I think of the idea of traditional roles.
Right.
Now, I already know the answer to this, but we're gonna go into it anyway. Do women take issue or view their man differently if they have the bulk of income coming into the house?
Yes. That is a hard yes. Unfortunately, that is the case. I wish that it wasn't, but it is. And, it runs along, just like I said before, with the whole, higher education thing. For whatever reason, Black women they internalize the achievement that America has stated are the good achievements. As they acquire those achievements, it's almost like it becomes a reason or a justification to eliminate or see no need for a Black man.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I'm making all of this money. So what do I need you for? I don't need you for anything. I make more than you. I have more education than you. What could you possibly bring to the table? Which is absolutely ridiculous.
It is. But like we always say, that to me comes back around to what it always does, a place of pain, brokenness, and hurt. Because the obvious answer to what do I need you for is, I don't know, love,
Right.
companionship, you know. But if in their minds, if it's a case of, well, I'm only going to stay with a man because he can provide for me financially, I'm just staying with him for that because I've been hurt when my emotions are involved, or when I depend on him, to do anything for me, in terms of taking care of me and loving me. So I'll stay for the money. But if I start making this money, I'm not taking that risk or dealing with the hurt and the pain or whatever else, or the difficulties of the relationship. So in my opinion, women have that frame of mind. It's still from a place of brokenness. They see that as coming from a place of strength and quote independence. No, because obviously, just like your reasons for having friends. You have friends for the companionship, for the fellowship, for the sense of community. It's not about what you can get out of them, or it shouldn't be. Same thing, when you have a man, it shouldn't be about just the money. So if you're saying I no longer need finances from him so I can dispose of him, that's brokenness. Because we all know, we're all grown. We all know that we need each other. Men need women, women need men, for emotional, spiritual reasons. So, yeah. So I agree with you on that. Yeah.
It's interesting to me how a lot of Black women look at relationships as transactional. You give me, I give you that. And, it's no different than the relationship that Black women have had with the welfare system in, the generations before us. Let's eliminate the Black man from the home, and we're going to have this transactional relationship where support is being provided so that I can take care of my children. I can take care of my family or whatever. But the man, as far as like what he brings to the table from a perspective of essence, spiritual energy, that relational component is discounted for that transaction, And so here we are now, where women are surpassing men in education and income. And it's that same quest for transaction.
Yeah. And I know some women will say, well, men, handle things as transactional sometimes too. They say, well, I'm paying all this money and, you need to do this, that, and the third. Well, we're not saying that's right. We're saying that is also wrong.
Right.
for it to be handled, in that way. So just wanted to put that out there. But I'm gonna swing this question over to NERDSoul and ask, what do you think in terms of how men feel and how versus how women feel when a woman makes more money, um, and when a woman is more educated? How do you feel in terms of what a man feels about that and what a woman feels about that? And if you want to add in why.
For me, personally, if a woman makes more than me, or or is more educated or less educated, it doesn't bother me personally. But I do understand that we all kind of live in a system based on a system, and the system that we're in is kind of like the Western, Americanized version of society. That means that your value is based on what you make, or your value is based on education, and more importantly, where you got that education from. So it's kind of bred into us throughout our lives. Like, hey, what you make means, this is what means how this means you're either A, B, or C level important. If you don't make this much, then you're not that important. If you don't make this much, then you're not that important. And then, of course, you have breakdowns in relationships where, unfortunately, at times, couples compete. And it can be a real thing. And the biggest issue with money is this kind of idea that we already bring into the relationship. Sometimes even not even knowing, is because, of course, we place the value of people on, what they know or don't know, and how much money they make. So do I think that men feel a certain way about women making more than them? I guess you could say at large, in general, yes, kind of like due to what I was saying, because, our society says, hey, you're a man, you're supposed to take care of the family, you're supposed to make X amount of dollars, you're supposed to be, the one financially supporting everyone, and you should be able to make it, comfortable for everyone else. And if you can't make money, because in many cases, especially in American society, a man's worth is his work. So if you can't make money, or you can't make the amount of money that, we think you should, or your wife thinks you should, or even you think you should, then somehow you are less of a man. And that can feed into the relationship quickly. If you're not constantly fighting against that kind of like training that society gives us. Not saying that you should be looking to make the most or the least in a relationship, but you should be looking to make the relationship work for what it is. Everybody's relationship is going to be different. But coming into it from a man's perspective, saying like, hey, I've got to make more money. And if I don't make more money, then I got to be out, or I'm mad at her, or I'm mad at myself, or whatever. You have to be able to kind of like let that go. And then the same thing for women. There are situations where, due to the society we were in, women will look down on a man that, he doesn't make enough, or he doesn't make enough to buy me this or buy me that, or maybe go on trips or whatever that might be. And, life happens. I mean, he could get a raise next week and things could change, but your amount of admiration, respect, or love for him should not change, regardless of the amount of money he does or does not make. Because then, of course, you can then also get into that sort of competition with with yourself. And it's something that we do because we fall into it, because it's part of American society. But since we are not as Americanized as the ones that created the society, maybe that's something that we should let go.
All right. So we're going to go to a break. We're going to go to our segment, In Your Black Business, where we highlight a Black-owned, Black-run business. And this is going to be another Etsy shop, which I've actually shopped from. and it's called Modish Couture. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It's spelled Modischcouture, Modish Couture, an African fusion store for designer and stylish wares. And I actually purchased a purse from there, which was absolutely beautiful. High quality wear. So they have purses, they have t-shirts, but it looks like they mostly have purses that have like beautiful patterns, beautiful colors. So check them out. They are Black owned, Black run, Etsy, Modish Couture. All right. So now let's go to New Day's resolution, which is a segment where we talk about New Day's resolution versus New Year's resolution. So just very basic, talking about setting some small goals that you try to meet and work on every day. And, you know, if you mess up one day and you don't get to it one day, it's okay. Start the next. So for mine, I've been working on creating a lost my words, curriculum for my son. I'm going to start homeschooling. And so I have actually made great progress on that, which I'm really happy about. I'm getting closer and closer. So I just do a little work every day. And again, I don't put heavy pressure on myself if I don't get a lot done or if I don't get to it on one specific day. But again, I am realistic with myself and say, hey, you could have done better today, do better tomorrow, or what have you. How are you doing with your goals, Madam Butterfly?
One thing that I have mentioned about meditation, and I think I also mentioned reading.
Yes.
And I am currently reading Sunny Hostin's book from The View, and it's called I Am These Truths, and it is a fantastic read, a page turner. It's really, really good. So that's my book for January. I want to have a book each month. So that's my book for January. And I'm really enjoying it. So it's going well.
Good. How are you doing on your meditation?
Well, see, what had happened was
you ready for a new day?
I'm gonna have to hit the reset button on that one.
That's what it's all about. Understood. Look, you tackled the reading, so there you go. All right, we're gonna keep pushing forward and look forward to another day. We'll try. That's what it's all about. All right, and so now we're going to go to footnotes. So this is just where we kind of touch on some topics that have come up or some news that's come up, you know, since we've planned for our show. And so in footnotes today, unfortunately, once again, we have more people that we have lost in the entertainment industry. And who is that, Madam Butterfly?
We have lost Marion Ramsey. You may know her from the Police Academy franchise. That was the sister in that movie franchise. She passed away. And then one of the Pace Sisters, famous gospel group, the Pace Sisters. I want to say the way you pronounce her name is Duranice Pace. She passed away. And then one of my favorite authors, Eric Jerome Dickey, passed away as well. So prayers to their families. And I pray that they all transition well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to pay homage to any of them, you know, check out on YouTube if you've never heard the Pace Sisters. Whew. Check them out. I know their videos have been trending on YouTube. You know, see if you can find some of the Police Academy movies and check that out, and absolutely pick up some books from Eric Jerome Dickey and pay homage to them. All right, let's jump back on into the pot. Um, now, another question. Can a man still be considered the head of the household if he isn't bringing in the bulk of income?
Well, real quick before y'all jump full back into it, I'll highlight this one real quick. Yeah, the head of the household shouldn't be based on how much money you do or do not make. Because if you do that, that thing could change at any time. You could get in a car accident, and you can't work suddenly, or maybe you're laid off. And the head of the household isn't particularly, or excuse me, let me back up, because I know we're dealing with societal issues and then cultural issues too. From where I see it, outside of the societal implications that, like who makes the money is the boss. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that should rule your household. Being the head of the household, or being the leader, or being, the captain of the ship, or whatever you want to call it, is more about setting the tone for your family, about being the protection for your family, about being the standard for your family, about being the rock for your family, not so much about the amount of money that you can or cannot make. It should be about being the kind of like the source of inspiration, the source of strength, the source of, the source of compassion at times if needed. All of those things are part of being a leader. All of those things, like if you look at, say, look at a family kind of like a team, what I'm saying? Like the captain of the team might not always be the best player. You know what I'm saying? Because there's more involved with being the captain of the team besides being the most, say, the highest jumper or the most athletic or the fastest or whatever. There's an energy around him. There's or her. There's an energy around him or her that kind of like exudes the example that the family wants to follow, setting that tone, that atmosphere that they want to kind of like vibrate at, that energy, that, vibration that they want to roll with, that kind of takes them to the next level, continues to support them and help them become better players, or, better family members. So being the amount of money, I don't think should really be the determining factor of head of household. There's way too much at stake for that. I'll say for Black families, there's way too much at stake for that. I think you need to find out what works for your family, what makes your family thrive, and then just, keep going with that. You know what I'm saying? Push that forward. Whether it's, the husband makes more than the woman, or, woman makes more than the man, or, the woman's in charge of whatever, or the husband's in charge of whatever works for your family, make that your standard, make that your example that you set for yourselves, for your children to be able to operate properly, instead of in some kind of weird dysfunction when you have to either compete or complain about one another, either kind of being the head of household or not being the head of household, or not being the type of head of household you think they should be.
Absolutely 100%. If he's a leader regardless of what the situation is. I mean, we could lose our jobs, God forbid, we could lose our home from, a natural disaster. All of this stuff could be taken away from us in the blink of an eye, and we could be on the curb with nothing but a cardboard box. But I tell you what, my husband gonna be leading us in that cardboard box until we build to wherever it is that our next place is gonna be, and he's gonna lead there as well. Leadership, head of household, to me, has nothing to do with income. It has everything to do with, first and foremost, the spiritual foundation that I have, and what I believe to be the proper structure of things. First and foremost. Secondly, I believe that in any partnership, there has to be a leader, that saying something about, you can't have two bulls in a pen or something like that, you won't get anywhere. So I think that there has to be a natural order of things where a person plays that leadership role. And for me in my relationship, that's going to be my husband no matter what. So it has absolutely nothing to do with income for me. But on the general scale for Black women, my message is consistent as it from the education to the career, all of that kind of stuff. I think that Black women tend to believe that if they make more money, that makes them the head of the household, and they posture themselves in masculine energy. And that is not a good move to make.
Yeah. Again, in sadness, I have to agree. And it's sadness because, I get the feeling that we may come off as we hate ourselves,
Right.
in Black women. And it's not that. We're just calling out what we see. And I think it's a very hard pill to swallow, but we are, I feel comfortable in speaking for both of us and saying we are dedicated to the truth.
Right.
And however hard it may be, to swallow, we have to really come face to face with some of these truths and take accountability for our own behavior and actions. And I do believe also some of this may be subconscious. I don't believe that, a lot of women go into this thinking, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to think of you. This is how I'm going to treat you. I think it's subconscious. It just kind of, I don't know, somehow a learned behavior, based on, I think partly what society tells us, what media tells us, the undertones of messages, that we see and that we hear, will kind of dictate how we behave and how we treat our men. And I think this, what we're talking about, maybe some of that. It's like we're brainwashed or trained, to behave this way and treat our men this way. And for those that it is subconscious and don't realize you're really doing it, you have to become aware, because I think there are women who don't realize that's what they're doing.
For sure.
How they're treating their men. And so we just have to be aware of it and take a step back. And I think it's also about, reevaluating what you really think about our men.
Right.
Do you see them as piggy banks? Do you see them as punching bags?
Right.
Maybe not physical punching bags, but emotional and psychological punching bags. I really think we just have to be more conscious of that. And I know for me, I try to be more conscious of that all the time in my interaction, of course, with my husband. It's funny when you get married, it reveals things about yourself you never realized and you never knew, because all of a sudden you're in this everyday relationship with this other person, and you're having experiences you didn't have before. You're interacting with someone every day, almost like, especially during the pandemic, every moment. So you realize these things about yourself, you see things about yourself, or they reveal things to you about yourself, and you're like, I don't really want to, that's not what I meant to do. That's not really what I want to do. And I just think it's things we have to be conscious of, because I think as women, we are so adamant about us being treated right. You know, and you need to be sensitive to our feelings and respectful of us as women. Well, it goes both ways. Just because men in general don't express their emotion as much as we do, they still have emotion. They're human. So they experience emotions just like we do. Their lack of expression of it does not mean it's not there.
Yes, I agree 100%. And I will say, just, for the sake of transparency, in my 20s, I was the exact type of woman that we've been describing this whole show. So, for those who may think that there is some kind of axe to grind or something like that with Black women, there are a lot of times when we talk about different things on this podcast where there may have been moments in time where we exhibited some of the behaviors that we're speaking on. And I think that is important to be able to say these things, because not every woman has an older woman or someone who has gone through certain things that can reveal to them another way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if in my 20-year-old self, if I would have been receptive to the message that I'm hearing. Of course, the great answer would be yes, but I don't know.
Yes.
But I know that, we have the ability to plant seeds, and, our journey through the universe is what determines how quickly that seed manifests into something else.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely not coming from a place of judgment, just like everything else that we talk about. A lot of times it comes from either personal experience or the experiences of people within our circle that we've seen. And we need, that whole philosophy of each one teach one, like we have a responsibility to help each other and allow each other to benefit from our knowledge and experiences. There's no reason for sisters to be functioning in toxic or operating in toxic behavior and potentially pushing away the love of their lives because they don't know how to handle success, or they don't know how to handle the battle within themselves. Because a lot of times when you focus on outside factors to determine your value, it's because you don't deem yourself valuable. You don't deem yourself worthy at the core. And so you have to focus on all of these outside things to build yourself up, and hurt people hurt people. Hurt people. So if you're feeling like you're nothing, but this job makes you feel like you're something, then you're going to project onto the people that are closest to you, which typically is the person you're in partnership with, and they become every lousy, lazy so-and-so. And it's really, you're really speaking to yourself on some level, but this is the only way that you can articulate those feelings in a way that is acceptable to you.
It's really true. And again, not to be a broken record, it all comes down to brokenness. Because I feel like anyone who's not receptive to this you have that wall. It comes down to fear and distrust. Because we're not saying anything that is totally out there, that's crazy. Everybody's going to have their different beliefs and their different ideas in terms of relationship. And regardless, whether you feel that a man should be head of household or you guys should be equal, what I can't see anyone believing is that one person is in charge or equal dependent upon whether you have a bachelor's degree or not, or whether, or whoever makes the most money, that's who's in charge, this week. That's crazy,
Yeah.
and again, that's transactional, like you said. So
Mhm.
it's a whole lot of different things, but I think honestly, what it comes down to is respect. Because we're talking about relationship. I mean, to be more specific, I'm thinking of this is in regards to uh, your spouse, maybe even significant other, someone that you are sharing your life with. You guys are sharing your full life.
Mhm.
So it comes down to, um, respecting each other and looking at their character, um, their heart, and their spirit. Where they're really coming from. Because like you said, a day could come, job is gone just like that. And I'm sure some people have experienced just that during this pandemic.
100%.
So I think it'll honestly, once this all is over and done, I'm sure there are some, uh, social scientists, psychologists, psychiatrists, or whomever out here working on this. But it will be interesting after this whole pandemic is done to hear from them in terms of their studies of how relationships have fared during this
Yeah.
pandemic, what people have found out about themselves, about their
Yeah.
others, and about their family structure, all those
Mhm.
different things. Because I'm sure folks have gone through and
Yeah.
discovered some things about themselves and each other. I hate to put this out there, but I'm sure there are going to be some relationships that fall apart or have fallen apart,
Mhm.
during this time, which is unfortunate. But, I feel like that's when you really, really get to know somebody.
Yeah.
Times get hard, times get tough,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like when, people go through the empty nester phase in their marriage, and the kids are gone off to college or, living their lives. And then it's just the two of them and they're spending all of this time together. And because they haven't been actively engaged in their marriage, they realize how different they are or how much they get on each other's nerves. And that plays more of a role than the love, or the desire to be together. This
Take
is kind
that explanation. You either hanging from the chandelier
of
or, somebody moving from the basement. It's gonna be one or two things. Y'all either gonna come out your corners loving, like on good times, come out your respective corners loving, or somebody moving into the basement. It's gonna
That is real. That is real. I mean, struggle, hardship, um, all of those things, like it's hard enough as an individual to experience drastic change and to recover from those drastic changes, but to stay in alignment with your partner at the same time that all of these things are going on, and just the level of uncertainty
yeah.
that all of last year really presented. It's a high stress situation, a high pressure environment. And then, people lost their jobs, not having the income to, for basic necessities, the job market not being what it is. Maybe one person remained employed because they're an essential worker and the other person, um, lost their job because there wasn't an ability for them to work from home or whatever the case may be. Like all of those things play a huge part, you know? So I think, like you said, the whole brokenness thing is so important to be a whole person when you seek relationships. It's not, I'm 50%, you're 50%, and somehow or another we're going to mash together and make 100%. Right. Because how your 50% line up to their 50% might not work out.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It might be a big gaping hole right smack dab in the middle.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So you have to come clear and present and ready to compromise, surrender, and not be judgmental and not be conditional in your love and affection and attention and all of that kind of stuff. If you made a decision that you're going to be with your husband and you love your husband and you're committed to your marriage, I'm sorry if you got an attitude with him, but if your normal behavior is that you cook dinner, maybe you're the person that cooks in the house, I don't know what your situation is. If you normally cook this man dinner, but now because you got an attitude, you will let him figure it out, that's a problem. Because you're operating from a conditional space.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so when you put that energy into your relationship, what can you really say if that energy is returned?
Right.
And why would you want to start that type of behavior in your relationship?
Yeah. You better get in that kitchen and slam them dishes and make that meatloaf.
That's right. I know that's right. Listen, I told my husband before we even got married, I said, listen, when we go to bed at night, we go to bed together. Not necessarily meaning at the same time, but like, I don't care how mad you are. I don't care how mad I get. Ain't gonna be no, we sleeping on the couch, we sleeping in the guest room or whatever. Both of us can be sitting here with our mouth poked out, mad. Heat coming off of both of our necks. But we're going to lay here and we're going to go to sleep. You understand? And that was something that we agreed on before we even got married. Because no, like what we're not going to do, it's not going to be, oh, we taking breaks, we sleeping apart. I don't even want to see you. I don't even want to be around you. Like we're not even allowing that to enter into our relationship. It doesn't mean that if you're heated sometimes, doesn't mean that, maybe I need to go into another room for a second just to count the 10 or whatever. That's not what I'm speaking on. But like, we're not taking hour-long breaks from each other and, oh, the sight of me gonna make you mad. Well, you just gonna be mad looking at me because we gonna figure this thing out. You gonna get desensitized real quick to looking at my face and becoming angry.
Yeah.
Like we're going to be, that's just, to me, I just feel like when you start creating these wedges or allowing these wedges to happen, it only grows because that's what you begin to focus on. When you're hurt, when you're upset, you focus on that particular thing. And then it becomes this huge thing when really it's not a huge thing. And going back to the context of the show, if you're constantly focused on, oh, I make $200,000 and he makes $60,000, and you view that as he's somehow less than. My thing is, girl, like, would you turn down $60,000? Like, if somebody just said to you, I'm gonna give you $60,000 every year, would you turn that down?
Right.
Absolutely not. So how is it problematic that this man is adding 60,000 to the 200,000? That just means instead of 200,000 per year, you got 260,000 a year.
Yep.
Like that sounds like winning to me.
Me too. The difference is you're looking at it as we have versus, well, this is what I got, and that's all you got. And I'm like, we got 260,000,
Yes.
And so that has to be the mindset of men and women. Because I know some men may see it differently and have an issue with a woman making more because they see it as she has that much money and I have this much money. It's like, well, you going in with your mind wrong.
Right.
Your mind is wrong off the top. And
Mhm.
that adds into that state of mind. Is you're not thinking in terms of we. You're thinking in terms of mine and hers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
just something to think about.
Let's give them something. Oh, what? No, that's not think about. That's talk about. But either way.
Give them something to think and talk about. How about think first? Think
Think before you speak, y'all. Which clearly I didn't do.
Yes, please do that. I say that in thought of some YouTube videos I've seen. Please think, ponder, write down, read, review, erase, revise, throw away. Like, I beg of you. Anyway, it's a whole other topic. But
Yeah.
we thank y'all as always for joining us on Black Together, A Walk in Her Shoes. Once again, if you want to check out the previous parts to this series, it will be in the link below. Once again, check out NERDSoul's other videos here on his YouTube channel, That NERDSoul. You can also check out some t-shirts, sweatshirts, all kinds of things on shop.nerdsoul.com. Thank you so much, and bye, y'all.
Peace, love, and light, everybody.